Our next shape is our last parallelogram. So a square is a rhombus, rectangle, and a parallelogram. So it basically has everything that we've talked about so far. So a nice little summary is right here. So all four sides of a square are congruent. And because it's also a rectangle, all four angles are right angles, so they are also congruent. Because we have a parallelogram, opposite sides are still parallel. And then when we talk about the diagonals, we have a bunch of stuff going on. So we have our diagonals. The diagonals themselves, so if we call this A, B, C, D, the diagonals are congruent because it's a rectangle. Because it is a rhombus, the diagonals bisect each angle. So for each of these angles, we have a set of congruent smaller angles formed because it's a bisector. Because it is also a rhombus, we know that they are perpendicular to each other. And because it is a parallelogram, like we're used to, the diagonals bisect each other. So there's a bunch of stuff going on. So it's important that you practice and make sure that you review the properties to make sure that you're distinguishing between all of our different shapes. So if ABCD is a square and AD is equal to 11, find each missing value. So let's go through and take it piece by piece. So AD is 11. So this is one of your sides of the square, so therefore you know that all three of the other sides must also be 11. So BC is also 11. They don't ask for AB or CD, so that's what I have so far. So now if we want to know AC, right, that's what it's asking for in the next one. If we look, AC is a diagonal, and because I know that a square has a right angle, you can use the Pythagorean theorem to determine what that diagonal should be. So we're going to do 11 squared plus 11 squared is equal to c squared. So again, use your calculator. In this case, because we're solving for the hypotenuse, we're going to be adding. So we get square root of 242 is c is equal to 11 radical 2. So AC is 11 radical 2. And because we have a rectangle, we know that the diagonals are congruent. And we know that because this is a parallelogram, these diagonals bisect each other. So your EC would be half of your diagonal. Now, if we look at the angles, if we look for DAB, that's this angle, which we know is 90 degrees because it's a right angle. AEB is 90 degrees because we know that the diagonals are perpendicular. CBD is going to be 45 degrees because we have bisected angles. So these two have to add up to 90. So x will give us 45. And then finally we have BAC, which is again is going to be the same thing, 45 degrees. So in the diagram, quadrilateral ABCD is a square with diagonal DB. Which of the statements are not true? So for a square, let's see. So AB is congruent to CB. That is true because all of the sides are congruent. AD is congruent to CB. That is also true. They're both sides. DA is perpendicular to AB. So that's talking about DA and AB would form a right angle, which is also true. And then the last thing they're saying is that AD would be congruent to DB. So that is talking about a side and a diagonal. Those two are not congruent, so this is the only one that would not be true with a square. So that's squares in a nutshell. There's a bunch of practice problems and then some review of the different types of parallelograms. We will be having a quiz on this, so please make sure that you know the differences between all of them.